everybody. This is Davino from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. As you know, on a Friday, we we do on the roundtable, we do homeschooling, home education. Depending on which country you are, you might say homeschooling or you might say home education. Right? It's the same thing, which means that you are teaching your children not in the traditional education system, but within your own environment. So today, this is the show we do today. And as usual, I have a home educator from across the world who is going to share her journey with us. She'll tell us why she did it. She's going to tell us why she stopped. She's going to just take us on her journey as to the reason why she done it. Welcome, 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 Rodia. Thank you so very much for coming onto the show to share your journey with us. I am extremely grateful for that. Introduce yourself and tell us where you come from. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Debbie, for having me. I'm Radia. I'm a Nigerian from Nigeria. Right now, currently, I live in Canada. I work as an educational assistant here in Canada. So I work with children with special needs. I Before I moved here to Canada, about just 1.5 year ago. Yeah, I moved here in 2022. And before I moved here, I back home in Nigeria, I homeschooled my kids, my two kids. Back then they were 5 and 4 year old, 5 and 3 as at that time. And I was homeschooling them while also working in the Nigerian educational system. And it's been a beautiful journey, really. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I have to thank you for coming and share your journey. I really do appreciate that. It's interesting. So when you were back home, you were homeschooling your children as well as working within the education system.
Mhm. Correct.
Oh, okay. So how were you doing? How were you doing this? How were you homeschooling the children?
So, when I say working in the educational system, I think it's important to explain exactly what I was doing.
Mhm.
So I started homeschooling at first, and then I, as a family, my husband was concerned about the kids, having social development and social interaction with other children. So I started a preschool, and it grew. And it grew into a full-blown school. However, because when you have a preschool or when you run a school back home in Nigeria, just like every other place, there are government requirements. You have expectations. And when I got into those requirements and I wanted to meet them, I realized that it didn't necessarily like go with the goal that I had. This is these are the guidelines, these are the things you're expected to do. But it didn't really quite go with my own goal and objective. So I was running the preschool, but you know, and at some point I also had to manage a secondary school as a college administrator. So back home, the secondary school was called a college. And this is high school, not necessarily in college, right? In the Western world. And because it was in the management, like managerial role. It was a managerial role for me. So it was a bit flexible. I could work with the kids, even my own children at home, and I had the luxury of time, and you know, I could afford to continue homeschooling without necessarily, disturbing, affecting my job. So I was homeschooling, and homeschooling is, like I said, it's a lifestyle. So it depends on what works for you. You don't necessarily have to have a class from 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. It's very flexible. It's based on the needs of the children. So it was easy for me to work around that and homeschool my own kids. So yeah, I worked as a school manager, and I had to be involved in the Nigerian educational system, know the requirements and the expectations, and help children and students in the high school, junior high, and senior high go through this system and manage their affairs in school. So yes, I was involved in the educational system back home.
Right, right, right. Thank you for that. So, when you were homeschooling your children, what was the day like? From what time to what time you started, and how did did you follow curriculum? And how did you actually, educate them, teach them?
Okay, so when I decided to homeschool, like I said, I had goals. I told myself, um, these were the reasons that I was homeschooling. I always ask people when parents come to me and they say they want to homeschool, I say, why do you want to homeschool? Because your why is going to guide you all through that journey. If you don't have a why, or if you don't know why you're doing it, then you just like lose it in between the journey. So that why was what, directed all of our affairs along the line. It was what directed what time we start. It was what directed how we do it. It was what directed the curriculum. And the why is my children, right? I was doing it for the kids, not for myself, not because I wanted them to be a certain way. But I remember very well and vividly that as a child, my first day in school, I cried so bad. I didn't like it. I didn't want to go. And throughout my elementary years in school, it wasn't the best of experience, right? And I told myself I didn't want my kids to go through that. I didn't want, because the educational system had not changed much from when I went to elementary school to back to now that I have my own kids. It hasn't changed much. So I told myself that I didn't want to take the chances of them going through that, right? So it was in their best interest. It was like doing what's best for my kids for me at that time. And I thought, okay, I want them to learn, right? And I want them to grow into awesome individuals that will be, beneficial to their own selves and the whole world at large. I wasn't restricting. I felt like I was going to nurture global citizens, not necessarily children for this particular place or for this particular era, like children that would be awesome, right? So yeah, I started homeschooling because of that. I started because I didn't want, like I said, I didn't really like school. I didn't like the fact that I was restricted to just sit down and learn something that I don't necessarily need right now. So all this influenced my decision to home educate my children. And like I said, it is for them. So my children were actually the curriculum. I remember at some point I wrote a book, homeschooling curriculum guide, and sincerely, my children inspired. It was based on what they were learning at that time. And even in that curriculum, there were some sections that I wrote that according to the child's interest at that time, according to the child's pace at that time. So for me, we were homeschooling based on their interest and at their own pace. So as much as I had a guideline starting out because I needed a guideline, right? I needed to I needed to invite them to something and see how they react to it. So I created invitations for different areas of learning. And based on that invitation, I looked out for their interest. I observed how they reacted to it. And it always helped me build up on the next learning. So another thing that I remember is because back home, as early as 2 years, a child was in school. A child was learning ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and counting 1 to 20. And for me, I felt like that was too much. It wasn't very necessary, especially if the child wasn't ready. So I didn't like the idea of kids waking up so early, like 6 a.m., a 2-year-old waking up, having to wake up 6 a.m., get dressed in uniform and go to school. And I said, no. So we start our day when the kids wake up. I think it's something that is like really common to parents. At some time, you just notice that the kids wake up at this time, but not me necessarily waking them. It depends on what time they go to bed. So when the kids wake up, we start our day. Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. So how many hours you were doing it for?
So, like I said, it was a lifestyle. So it wasn't necessarily them sitting down. The kids did not necessarily think they were in class. No, they were just learning on the go. So usually in the morning, the night before, I would have prepared what we are going to learn for the next day. And when we wake up, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to go exactly the way I planned it. It's just to guide our day, right? So when they wake up, they have their breakfast. They don't necessarily have to take their bath. We're in the house. So it was really like freestyle. Um, they have their breakfast, and in the morning we just have a bit of free play before we start, just to ease them into that, learning phase. And one thing that I made sure that I did for every homeschooling day was we always spend time outside. So typically we start around 10 a.m., sometimes 10:30, and then it could, go as late as 5 p.m. I remember vividly, like when we start our day around 10, we go as late as 5 p.m. in the evening. And it was it wasn't too much for them because they were having fun. They were enjoying it, they were learning, they were always asking questions. They didn't want it to stop because it was very interesting for them to do, right? So even at that 5 p.m. when it stopped, it was because I would stop it because I know that we have to have dinner and then we have to have some um we time, maybe just relax and just talk, or they will just play, and then they have to prepare for bed, you know. So that is why it will stop around that 5 p.m. Because usually when I make dinner, they would help in making dinner. And when the kids are helping in making dinner, I know that if dinner will take 1 hour, when the kids are helping, it will take 2 hours, right? So these are the things that we put into consideration for us to stop it at that around that 5 p.m. So it could go as long as that duration. And so when we start, we have lessons, and then we have like interludes. So whereby the kids just have something to ease the whole learning. And if anything was getting too serious and too much for them, like I did, as much as they were learning, I didn't want to overstimulate, right? So we just ease it in between. We can have puzzles, we can have outdoor play, we can have water play, and even all these things, puzzles, outdoor play, water play, they were learning, right? But they weren't just necessarily getting like big concepts in their head. So it could go like that. So usually when we start with, I used to have like a daily schedule. So when we start with free play, and then we move to number works. Maybe we are learning about numbers, we are learning counting, we are using this counting beads. We know that they were enjoying it, but we're already learning introduction to arithmetic, mathematical concepts, true numbers and shapes and all that. Then we could break it in between with puzzle, and they can learn about science, and then or geography or places around the world. That's geography. So the concept of geography might be a big word, but when they're learning around places around the world, they're learning about people around the world, that it's not the world. They might not have left Nigeria, but there is a bigger world outside their own world. So that's geography lesson in my own terms, right? And then we can just break it down with painting and art and do craft and all that. And then they'll have another learning, like maybe reading. We can read a story. And when we are reading, sometimes they ask questions like, Mommy, what's the meaning of that word? We write it out, we learn the meaning. So that's like literacy, right? So breaking down all those lessons. So it will just be maybe something they asked or something they said that would just, guide our learning for the day. But typically from like 10 to like 5 p.m.
So how do you get your work in between? Because you say you work for the for the school system. So how are you?
Yes.
Was it
So
part-time?
so on days that I go to work, on days that I have to go to work, what I do is like I said, I made it as flexible as I could, nothing rigid, as long as they were learning and they were being engaged meaningfully. So when I know that I'm going to work, I use make use of printables. So I print things out that they can engage with. It could be like the um puzzles that they had to solve, or things that they had to write and fill in. It could be coloring, it could be just simple additions printed out in paper, so I don't necessarily have to do so much work. So it would just require me to prepare a night before, and then based on that preparation, take it along and just give them to engage with. So usually, because I've introduced the concept before, or it is based on their interest, they can guide themselves to do it.
Mm-hmm.
My my daughter who is older would usually guide her brother to do something, and because all the resources were accessible when we are going out, and that's something that I'm so used to right now. When we are going out, I always have like a small bag where I pack their own resources and things that they will need to stay engaged even while we are outside the house. So I would have them engage themselves and give these resources to them. Sometimes I take some learning tools. I don't want to use the word toy, it could be toy, right? But not just for play, but learning resources, learning tools, puzzles, blocks, and things that I know I can just carry in a bag. And while I'm doing my own work, they can be by my side and just engage with them while I'm doing some other work. And then, the concept of homeschooling, we all think that it has to be learning this math, learning English, learning this and that. Yes, it's a lot of learning of that. And it's also a lot of, interaction and learning from people around them. I remember back then when I was working in school, of course, the teachers in school, then they will engage the kids, they will talk to them, they will inquire, what are you doing? And, all this interaction, this social interaction really helped them as well to, they learned a lot of native intelligence from people around, from older people around. And that's part of learning. It's part of the skills that they need in life. So that was homeschooling for us.
Thank you so very much. My goodness. So which means that when you go to work, you take your children with you.
Yes, I take them along with me. If I resume 10 a.m., we resume together 10 a.m. And they are in my office doing their work, being engaged.
Right. Okay. So you are homeschooling on the go.
Yes, correct, on the go. So a lot of our mornings when I'm driving down to work, a lot of our mornings, my daughter then was learning how to read. So she had this lot of I use a lot of flashcards. So she has this flashcards where I would just give it to her, and I would have picked out some words, some flashcards, maybe like 10, 6, 10, and I'll give it to her in the back, and I'll tell her to try to spell it, and I'll listen while driving, and she'll spell it to me. We did a lot of that, a lot of that. And I can remember very well that doing that, she learned a lot of sight words during our drives to school, to work. She learned a lot of sight words. And this helped prepare her for reading.
Thank you. So now that you migrated to Canada, are you still homeschooling?
So I call it support learning, at home support, right? I don't have homeschooling, I feel like it's luxury and not everybody can afford it. So not necessarily luxury in terms of money that you spend, the lot of funds that you invest in it, what you spend on going out, taking the kids on field trip, buying resources, not necessarily. But luxury in terms of time. Even back home, the Western world is as much as we all want to like be here and we want to tap into the resources available and get the exposure that we can get from being around the world. There is nothing like home, right? And the luxury I have back home, we don't necessarily enjoy it in the Western world. Just like I always say, there are pros and cons to everything. Back home, I could stay off work for some months and decide to just dedicate my time to homeschooling. My husband works and he's supposed to take care of me anyways. That's his responsibility, right? So I can afford to homeschool. But here, especially when you just move here, it takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of, you have to make some sacrifices ahead before you can be able to say you can afford that in terms of time. Because in the Western world, time is money. So we cannot necessarily afford that here. My country, Nigeria, is a place where entrepreneurship is very, very, it's a big deal. It's very big back home. So I could decide to say, okay, I'll be an entrepreneur, run my own business, and I'll have time to homeschool my kids. Here, entrepreneurship is not so much of a big deal as it is back home, right? So I can't necessarily afford the luxury of staying off work and homeschooling, but I can continue to impact my kids' learning even outside school, outside the traditional school setting. Now, traditional school setting, what I have here right now, I'm very, very happy for it. I'm thankful for it. Can it be better? Yes. Would I like to experience homeschooling again full time? Oh, yes, I will. Even my kids are requesting for it. They would really like to experience it again full time. But for now, what we have now is supporting their learning at home based on the knowledge they already have, that they have already acquired. Because when you start homeschooling, there is a standard to it. There is a standard to it. And when your kids go from homeschooling, in my own experience, when they go from homeschooling to traditional schooling, it is a big culture shock. It is a big difference. And it's even a bigger difference when you're moving from this part of the world to this part of the world. So yeah, we miss homeschooling. It's a big difference. But also we are thankful for where we are. So yeah, we'll continue to, because of the experience that they've had with homeschooling, we'll continue to support learning at home.
So how do you support, because you said to me, homeschooling is not a plan or one of things. You say it's a lifestyle. What do you mean
Yes.
by that?
So I believe that the kids are the curriculum. Even a lot of us, parenting is homeschooling, basically. You're a parent as long as you give your time to parenting, you tell yourself that you want to do it right by the kids for the betterment of their life and the whole world at large. And you put you're intentional about it, you're homeschooling. Teaching your children basic manners is a lot, you know, because these are skills, these are life skills that you do not necessarily learn in school. And these are life skills that we are right now using in our everyday job, in our career path, because there are lots of things that I remember growing up that we were taught, that we were put through, that we are now using in our work life. I didn't learn half of the things that I use in my work life in school. I didn't learn it through my university degree, right? So yeah, it's a lifestyle, and one way or the other, we all do it. And homeschooling, we have to understand that it is not just you who is homeschooling your child. It takes a village. The people around you are helping you, they're contributing to that. As long as your child is learning something that will be useful for them in the future, in their life, that is homeschooling, that is learning, that is whatever name we want to call it, right? So it's a lifestyle. Now, it's a lifestyle because you do it every day. You live it. There are so many things that I do not do now because my kids are watching. There are so many things I do not do because my kid will ask me, why are you doing it? They will ask questions. How do I tell them? How do I defend it? There are so many things that I sacrifice because I'm a mom now, right? So it is my life now. Okay, so this December, January period, we went on a family vacation. And I thought about how everything we do as a family now evolves around the kids because we have children and we cannot separate ourselves from having children. However, I can use that situation, I can leverage on it and enjoy the life that I have right now. I've been a youth, I've been single, I've lived a life as a wife without kids, right? But now I have kids and I love my kids and I want to give them the best and I want to live and enjoy every moment with them. So yes, I'm living my life around my kids, and that is the lifestyle. Because I know that if I want to go to places, like every time I'm checking out places, okay, we are going to the city, things to do around that city. Unconsciously, I just Google things that are family friendly because I have kids. It has to be things they can go through. It has to be something that they can unconsciously learn from. So, it's a lifestyle. You just have to put it into consideration. As long as you want that rich and awesome, childhood for them, that would positively ultimately impact their future. Yes, it's a lifestyle.
Thank you very much for that. What are some of the challenges and triumph of homeschooling?
Whew. Like I said, it's a luxury. Not everybody can afford it. Right now, the challenges that I have, the major challenge that I have is I can't afford that luxury of time. I'm here thinking, how can I be on a salary for life without working so that I can homeschool?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
hear
that's
you.
just what I want to do. I really enjoy doing it.
Mhm.
But the main, I feel like after the luxury of time and that not everybody can afford, even when you can afford it, the number one thing that is very easy to get in the way is losing focus, losing track of why you started.
Mhm.
It's very easy to, especially for me, I'm in the educational system, right? And there is a curriculum. Back home, there was a curriculum. Here, there is a curriculum, right? And the way curriculum is designed in such a way that there is a timeline, there's a duration. The kids have to learn this at a certain time. The this is what the teacher should teach at this time. And if you've been in the educational system or your child is transitioning from traditional school to homeschooling, or the list of it all, you have people around you who go to traditional school. It is very easy to compare and say, this child knows this already. This child is learning this already. Why don't you know it? Why am I not doing it? And then you include it in your own homeschooling curriculum. And at that point, you lose track of why you started, because why you started is for your child, right? Your child should be the curriculum and should direct the curriculum. Now, I know that, of course, there are expectations, right? And in child development, we always say every child is different. But again, at the end of the day, we have guidelines for when they should have take their first walk, when they should crawl, when they should do all that. And because I did early childhood, right? So I'm an early childhood professional. So yeah, we say all those things. But again, we say every child is different. So why do we have a timeline?
Mhm.
The timeline is there not to restrict you, but to guide us to know when something might be going wrong. But it doesn't necessarily mean if it's not being met or if that milestone is not being met, it is wrong. No, it might just be that child's style. It might just be things that surrounded that child's birth or that child's pregnancy or that child's environment, right? So it is very important that when you're homeschooling, it is very important to have a why. If you have to, write it down. If you have to, check it often. It will keep you on track to know why you're doing this, not to lose focus and not to bring in something into your own curriculum, which is your child, because the child should be the curriculum. The child, so for me, I always say something. I have a curriculum guide that I did for my kids. But then if that curriculum doesn't have a timeline, it doesn't say this is when they should learn this. I don't restrict them to a time. My son has been learning his sight words since he was 2 years old, and we're still learning it. He's 5 now, for 3 years, right? Um, because my son is different from my daughter. The way they learn is different. So if I lose track and say, oh, your sister is already doing this. She was doing this at this age. And I want to impose that on my son. It's going to affect his learning and it's going to affect his development. It's going to affect so many things. His self-esteem, his emotional, how his feelings and everything. So it is very important to stay true to why you started, you know, reevaluate yourself, your why, keep checking, assess yourself. Am I on track? Am I doing it right? So I think one major challenge is that's one of the major challenges, like losing focus of our why, losing track of why we're doing what we're doing, and going away from our own beliefs as a homeschooler.
Mhm. Thank you. You know, it is so important what you've just said in terms of remembering your why. Because too often, it's either when you become overwhelmed or the other things you're doing, you forget the why because you just immerse yourself. And when you know what you're thinking, hold on, but why have I started this? Because some of the starting is some of the homeschooler, when they started, they were trying to reproduce the education system, and then
Mhm.
realizing it doesn't work, they had to dish it and just go with the flow. Because too
Mhm.
often, because we've been conditioned for so long, we take all those things on, you
Mhm.
know, and then sometimes it's difficult to let it go because we think that we need to follow the traditional school,
Yes.
which is really interesting. Um, do you believe that homeschooling is more effective than the traditional school? What's your thought on that? The fact that the fact that you wear two caps, right?
Mhm.
What are your thoughts?
So I am so happy that we are having this conversation. I have been looking for the platform to actually talk about it. So thank you again so much.
You've got the platform, my dear. Take it away.
Um, like I said, they both have its pros and its cons, right? Um, they're both good for different reasons. Um, However, it is important to note those reasons. After looking at it so well, I like the traditional school. I like the fact that the social skills are almost unlimited, right? The kids meet teachers, they meet friends, different from people from different backgrounds, especially here that I am in this part of the world. Um, my kids are very blessed to be in a very diverse school where there are different people from different parts of the world. They interact with them, they learn different things. Um, you know, tolerance, perseverance, just basic human relations. It's very good for them. I like the fact that in traditional school there are different professionals with different backgrounds that can help with different things for the children, and this is also very important. This is something that you know you might not necessarily get in your house. Like you have two adults in the house, like the least, or at most, at least one, at most, as much as you can, depending on how big the family is. So, um, but it cannot be like a traditional school setting where you have a lot of experts that are working in different fields, the language pathologist, the educator, early childhood educator, the teacher, different people that are ready to help the children and the different things they engage with. I remember so well that people used to say that, in homeschooling, um, the children don't go out, they don't meet other children. In traditional school, they go on field trips, they do all that. But the thing is, homeschooling is what you make it. Back home when we were homeschooling, at some point, shortly before we left home, like a few months before we left home, I included weekly field trip into our homeschooling. So every Thursday we'll go out. It might not necessarily a field trip, but would go out of our own, like of the house, of our street, of our area, and we'll just we've been to the museum, we've been to the art gallery, we've been to the train station, we've been to different places, like places that we might not necessarily go every day. But I said, okay, we can learn there, right? So let's go. And they meet different people. The kids they were so interested in so many things. They would want to pay at checkout when we go to places. They would want to be the one to, you know, order what they want to eat. These things, these interactions, they're also social interactions that children need. These interactions are even interactions that a child who goes to traditional school might not necessarily get if you're not intentional about it. So yeah, homeschooling is what you make it. If you think that someone who goes to traditional school gets these things or are exposed to these things, include it in your homeschooling if you want your child to get it, if you think it is important. Talking about the experts, meeting different experts and everything, include it in your homeschooling. How about, I remember one time my daughter was sick and she had malarial infection and it affected her eye and we had to go see the optician. She met the optician, the woman did the test, the doctor did everything. And I told the doctor, you know what, we are homeschooling and I would like her to really learn. I want like this is an avenue for her to learn. We are in your office and you have all these things. Can you please talk to her about how they work? And that's she met someone, she met a doctor, and it's very interesting how sometimes something would just happen. I would tell my daughter, and then she would retell the story of exactly how it happened. She remembers things from as far back as when she was 3 years old. And I'm like, how do you remember these things? So all these things, if you want your child to have that exposure, expose them to it, show them to it. Talking about social interaction with other children, have play date, have friends, and the good thing about this, my very favorite thing about it is we have friends. My kids have friends, had friends back home that they still keep up with, that we share the same moral values. And they meet together. It's like I'm the parent, I'm the mom, and she likes this person, and they're friends, and this person is my friend, and I know that we share the same moral values. We have similar ideologies. Oh, I'm okay for my child to stay with our daughter. I'm okay for her to stay there for like few minutes or few hours and play. And I'm rest assured that she's in safe hands. In school, I don't know all of our friends. I don't know their parents. I don't know where they're from. I don't know their home. I don't know the things that they believe in. I don't know the things that their kids are allowed to do. If things that I believe that my children should be able to do, right? Right now, my daughter has a friend from here, a best friend she would come to our house, she would have sleepover, they would do things together, that they're not even friends in school. They don't even go to the same school. Right? So it's not necessarily for them to make that social interaction in school. It is what you make homeschooling. It is what you make out of homeschooling. Another major thing another major pro that I would pick for homeschooling that I think, I'm sure traditional school doesn't necessarily have, is the area of curriculum, which I will go back to. Now, like I said, there is a curriculum. There is a timeline to it. There are expectations. And there is a particular person to teach that particular area. Because the system believes that that person is an expert in that field. The system believes that this person can teach it best. But it's not necessarily so. They believe that that person can teach it best because he has a qualification in that area. But he's not necessarily the best person for the job.
Yeah.
Yes, he has a qualification to teach it. Good, which is important. Is he passionate about it? Does he talk about it with so much passion? Can he transfer that knowledge into another person? So these are the things that are important. Now, if this person can do all that, can this person interpret the expectations of that curriculum into the different languages of 30 plus children in that classroom? Mind you, as a homeschooling mom, one of my favorite things about homeschooling is how I learn from it. My kids ask me some questions sometimes. I have to pick up my phone and start reading, articles and reading things on it, looking for books to read about it because I don't necessarily know them, right? But they make me learn. I read them so well, such that I understand so well, I can interpret in ways that they will understand it. Now, am I the best person to teach that thing at that particular time? Yes, because my kid inquired about it and I had to go do my own research on it. And I had to digest it such that I can interpret it in the way that my child understands. Because who understands my child most? Me.
Yeah. Yep. That's both. Yep.
Now, I feel like it's a disservice to other children if I have them being taught the way my own child understands. Do they understand that way, the way my child understands? Does my child understand the way they understand? Right? Now, as much as the school system is trying and they're doing, the best they can for kids, sincerely, Canada, the city where I am, the school system is beautiful. Like the things that have been put in place, the the resources that are made available. Like, it's just like, when you said some kids are visual learners, some are auditory learners and all that, some are hands-on learners. The school has provided so many things, so many resources to help that as much as possible, every child is catered for. And that is why we have people like me in the school as well to help with children that, the teacher might not necessarily, be able to like go around everybody. And that is why we have people like me in the classroom so that we can, help support what the teacher is doing and help support these children. And it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
But again, there are over 30 children, like I said. There is one particular thing that has to be taught. There is a timeline to it, whether you get it today or not. If the curriculum says I have to teach you for 30 days, I'm going to teach you for 30 days. If we waste the remaining 29 days, that's okay. We just have to do what the curriculum says. Right? How about when my child is not interested in a particular topic? Okay, we can come back to that. What are you interested in? This. Let's do it. My child will learn that better and faster because my child is interested in that particular thing.
Yep.
I cannot do that in the traditional school. The school is not meant for just you alone. The school is meant for lots of children. And according to child development, there is this thing you should be learning at this age. So yeah, all these things are the differences in, traditional school and homeschooling that makes it, what it is.
It's clear from what you've said that you did not say it explicitly, but it's clear from what you said that the traditional school put pressure on the children much more than the homeschooling, because homeschooling, they just seems to be just going at their own pace and relaxing. If the pace is much faster, that's fine. If the pace is slower, therefore that's fine too. But in the traditional school, as you rightly, confirm, children have to be achieving this at set time, or else they're seen as a failure. They're not seen as their work in progress, They're seen as a failure. The interesting thing about, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and her son had his parents' evening. She's also a teacher. And one of the things the teacher said to her is, "Oh, he's failing maths." And I'm saying to her, "What?" She said, "I was so mad." She said, "I said to the teacher, no, he's not failing, because he have not yet finished."
Yeah.
So those are, you see, if she was one of those mom who, did not know better and say, "Oh my goodness, my child's failing," that child would indeed fail. Because the teacher already labeled that child, and that child going to be wearing the label. Right? Whereas she said, "No, he's not failing," because the teacher said that he failed. She said, "No, he haven't taken the exam yet. And he's not failing. He's not failed." And I'm thinking, how could teacher say that this child is failed because the child did not get the grade that you expected in the mock? It's interesting because this is what I'm getting from the school I'm teaching at, because I go to different schools, etc. And in this school, one of the, because I've only recently started the school, and one of the students came up to me last Friday when she saw me, and she said, "Oh, Miss, can I come to your class after in the afternoon, after the school's finished, etc., almost finished, whatever she said to me. But on a Friday, I have a free lesson. My last lesson is a free lesson." So she came halfway through. So, and what was so interesting about that student was she came over to England in 2020, don't know a word of English. And she's actually gone through the system. Now she's an A-level student in her second year A-level. She's doing 4 A-levels and 1 vocational course. And the interesting thing about it is, she said to me, "Miss, when I was going through the whole thing," she said, "one of the teachers said to me that, oh, you're not going to make it." Right? She said, "What do you mean?" Because she don't know, she's going through English now, but she's not going to make it, right? when she actually passed, because she got 7 and above for her GCSEs. And then she said to them, okay, she's going to do A level. The English teacher, there's something about English teachers, you know. The English teacher said to her, right, no, you're not going to be able to do these A levels because you realize it's a lot of reading and writing. So I said to her, why have you chosen for A level? Because I was just, interested because the why again. She said, because the teacher told me I couldn't do it. And I'm going to show her that I could do it. That student is on her way to A stars, right? And she's chosen 4 A levels and 1 vocational course, which is also equivalent to A levels. And it's so interesting because teachers need to realize that you cannot stop the children. Whereas if this child were homeschooled, there would be no limit as to the child ability, etc. I have another ex-student where the teacher had said to her that she couldn't do the English. She couldn't do English. She couldn't do the English. The student came to me crying because I was in another school, and she said to me, the teacher saying to her, that she's not going to make it. She's just saying to her that she's not the student she is, etc., etc. That student actually did the A level, and not only did that student, because the teacher actually predicted that student to be for A level, right? That student's got an A. The student then, they said, when we were speaking about it, she said to me, Miss, I know I should have got higher grades. I should have got an A star. I said, ask the school to get the examiner to remark it. That student remarked the A. She got an A star.
Oh.
And this student now is in one of the top universities. She's in LSE. The interesting thing, that teacher now, when that student went to the school for, I think it was open day, whatever, presentation, whatever it was, the teacher now want to claim credit, because that's, of where the student is. The sad thing, as teachers, we need to stop saying that students are not going to make it. We don't know. A student might fail the GCSE, they fail the mock completely, but yet still, when the real exam comes, that student shine through. We don't know. You see, so that's one of the beauty of home educating your child, where there are no blocks, as you said earlier.
Yes.
You allow your child to go according to their academic needs and where they want to go, so there are no restrictions. Whereas in school, yes, I'm in the education system. I put my hand up. I'm in the education system. But guess what? I'm one of these educators who teach with a difference, right? Because I believe that we need to allow children to excel if they need to, instead of holding them back.
Yeah.
And sadly, that's what the education system does. And this seems to be these English teachers, eh? I'm not too sure what happened to these teachers that teach in English. I'm not too sure what's going on with those teachers that teach English, that they feel that the student is not going to make it. And it's interesting because when that student was talking to me today, because I've only just met the students, right? They said to me, Miss, she said, I remember it so clearly because I couldn't speak English. And when I was going through, there was no support. And she said to me, she had a teacher who, the teacher was not teaching her, but she became friendly with that teacher. And the teacher was also, that student is Portuguese, and the teacher was also Portuguese. And the teacher said to her, if you come to me after school every day, and when you have a free period, I'll help you. And she said that teacher helped her. And she said when she went home, she go through the English. She said she was determined. These students right now speak English fluently. The fact that she's doing 4 A levels.
Right? That's a big deal.
It is. And I said to her today, I said, I would love you to come and speak to the rest of the students so that they could see what is possible when teachers say it's impossible.
Yeah.
You see, Whereas the beauty of homeschooling, nobody would have said that to this child. Should I just go through it without this negative thing? It's interesting because exactly what you say in terms of, you know, the child going to their own pace, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And remembering the why. The why is supporting the child. The why is the
Mm-hmm.
child.
Yes.
You know, that is so powerful what you said.
Mm-hmm. You
The
know,
why
what you
is the
said just now, it just made me remember back home, like the way the curriculum is designed and the way the system is designed. So usually, um,
mm-hmm,
we used to just say it jokingly back home that we go to school just to pass the exams, right? We were prepared in school just to pass the exams. And how the educational system is just about what's in the textbook, what the curriculum says you should learn. Actually, the textbooks, the recommended textbooks are designed in such way that it's like the authors pick up the curriculum, look at what it says you should learn, and they will go like week 1 to 2, week week 3 to 4. These are the things, like the outline is there, the examples are there.
mm-hmm,
And now I'm thinking, if I want to learn multiplication, for instance, a child wants to learn multiplication, and there is already an example. You have already conditioned your learning, that child's learning to what you're thinking at that time. Why is the example not about what is happening in that child's life at that time? Why is it not about, oh, you like marshmallows, you want to have marshmallows? Okay, I have 6 marshmallows in this plate now, and you have to share it with your brother, 2 of you. So how do you divide it? How many does it take? How many do you take? Oh, I'm going to take this. If the child makes mistakes, that's okay. Okay, you pick one. Now you pick one. You pick one. You pick one. What do we have left? How many marshmallows do you have in your hand? How about we teach division like that according to what is happening to that child in their life, without necessarily saying that in 2 weeks or in one lesson, the child must get that if you divide 6 by 2 or if you divide 2 by 6, it's going to give you this, right? We have already conditioned it. We have already restricted that learning to what we are thinking. My own learning,
yeah,
that child's learning. You didn't even ask them about it,
mm-hmm,
but you have conditioned it to your own way of thinking. Now, you have already stated that at the end of this learning, this test will be conducted. And for this child to pass, this child must have this. You know, there is a script that you want the child to come and act. And acting is not real. So if you're doing all that and you design the educational system that way, that means you already have in mind what you want to produce that does not necessarily align with that child's life, right? So all these things are very important. All these things are things that we need to go back to the drawing board. There needs to be a total reform.
yep,
And it's very easy for me to say that this is the way it's done back home. And I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to be here now and to see how it is being done here now. And now I can say, okay, maybe my dad is a professor of adult education. And I I I'm happy to have these conversations with him because he gets it. We 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 discuss these things, and it can relate to what I'm saying. He understands, right? And he's been blessed to work in the capacity, or like to work under the educational sector in the country. And I told him that, you know what, I don't think our education back home is that bad. I think we just need a reform here and there, and we just need to tweak things around. Because seeing what is happening in the Western world now and seeing what is happening around the world, I think that we're not that bad, but because we don't leave our own like space, we don't know what is being obtainable, what is obtainable outside. So now knowing what is obtainable, I think that okay, I think we all just need to just reform this thing worldwide.
mm-hmm,
We need to. And
mm-hmm,
I remember back then, education back then, when it first started, it was because of the advent of industries and the industrial system, where the industry needed these people to work in this area, in the engineering field, in this field, and so people were produced for those particular jobs. People were prepared for those fields. But right now, things have changed. We need different people to be in different places. We need people, more importantly, we need people to be able, like the basic survival. We need people to be able to survive this life. We need people to be, if everybody can take care of their own selves, if everybody can be responsible for their own selves, it will be so much better in the world, right? So we need people to be able to cater for their own self, be responsible for their own self. So how about looking at education from the angle of raising responsible citizens, right? That way, it will be for them and not necessarily for the company or for this industry or for this, the way it has been designed in the curriculum. So I think it's just like you said, when you already put a benchmark, when you put a grading system in place that says that this person failed, you have already set them up for failure.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I can totally relate because even till I finished high school, my math wasn't good. And I remember when I started homeschooling because the system said I failed math and I failed the system said I failed it woefully according to the grading system. But now, do I deal with money? Yes. Do I have good financial management discipline? Yes, I do. Right? I did I learn this in high school? No, I learned it along the way in life. I learned to, you know, um, say to manage my spending, to say this is how much I have, this is how much I'm going to make, this is how much I need to save, and I do all that. These are life skills. These are basic life skills that we all need, whether you go to school, you're educated or not. We all need it. Now, are we saying that for you to learn those skills, you have to go to school? No. These are things that we should be teaching the kids. We go out to the store and the kids say they want to buy this. Look at the price. What do you think? Now, look at the price of this. What do you think? So which one do you think we should buy? Do we need your food more or you need your toy more? Which one is more important? These are priorities, right? This is learning. These are the things the children need for life. Okay, so do you think you're going to save up for it? Can you save up for it and buy it by yourself? Because I have money for food, not for that right now, right? So these are basic things. So now the system said I failed woefully. And I took it upon myself because it made me not like mathematics, the way I was taught and the way I was told that I failed it. I didn't like it. And up until today, I just tell myself, no, I'm not going to that area. So I don't have anything to do with mathematics. But I started homeschooling my kids and I'm back to mathematics. I'm like, how do we go about it? And I told myself that I want to impact that knowledge. I want to share that knowledge. I want to translate that knowledge to them in such a way that they would not have a hate relationship with mathematics the way I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to teach English. I like English. I like to write. I read mass communication. I was a journalist in my past career. So this is something that I enjoy to do, writing. And I felt, I won't have a problem with that. I'll teach them English and literacy so well. But mathematics, I think I have to go back to the drawing board. I have to learn it again. I have to teach it in the most interesting way so that they do not hate it the way I do. Right now, my kids love solving math problem so much that when it's time to learn, I'm like, okay, it's learning time. Mommy, please, can we learn numbers? Can we learn mathematics? And I'm like, okay, if you like that. Because I told myself it has to be different. And it has to be the way they like it. What interests them. Oh, they like Cheerios. They like this small cereal. They like this crackers. Okay, we're going to use it for counting. We're not going to be using sticks or counting off our head. If they like this, we're going to use something that interests them. So these things are very important. And when I'm teaching them all these things, they don't have to take tests at the end of it. Exactly. We assess, right? I assess their knowledge. I check because they're engaging, right? And I'm observing. So I'm seeing the things they know, I'm noting it down, and I'm seeing where the challenge is and where we need to work on and improve on. But there is no test. They're not looking forward to any test. They're not anxious because there is a test coming. They're not anxious because they could fail that test or they could do bad at it. They are not anxious because I already said if you don't get this, you failed it, and we have to start over again. They're not anxious because they have to repeat a class. Because, all those things are already setting kids up for failure. When you already put, when you say I am going to give you the sweet, but before you can have the sweet, you have to go through that thorn. It will totally put the child off. And that child will no longer think about that sweet they want to get, but about the thorn right in front of them that they have to go through and the pain they have to go through. So yeah, ultimately what we want to do, we don't really mean harm, but with the measures that have been put in place, the system that has been put in place, we are already harming the kids.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting when you talk about the maths because a lot of people hate maths, no, they afraid maths and they hate maths because of how they were taught, right? Because it wasn't taught in an enjoyable way. Because I remember when I first came to this country, I used to love maths. I love maths. And then I had a teacher that was a crappy teacher. I hated the subject until front lens because I started teaching maths to key stages, and then I thought, you know what? These lessons are too boring. I have to make it exciting. So then I began to make maths exciting, and I began to realize, oh my goodness, I like it again.
Bad, right?
Exactly. It's interesting because I was talking to a colleague of mine yesterday because she used my classroom and she was a maths teacher. I said, oh, what do you teach? She said, I teach maths. I said, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. I said, it's so lovely when you see maths teachers and female maths teachers. I said, it makes such a difference. She said, I really hope so. I said, of course it does. I said, you need to make this. I said, if you don't do that yet, you need to make them enjoy it, come along with you. She said, I'm trying. I said, you have to. I said, because you know, a lot of people hate maths because of the teachers they had.
Yes. Yes. The way the teacher teach it, you know, back home, growing up, when the math teacher is coming, when it is math period, we are already so anxious. The class is rigid. And because math, math is in itself, it's almost a rigid, subject because there is formula you have to follow. And if you don't use it, you don't get the result that you're supposed to get. You don't get the answer you're supposed to get. So math in itself is already a bit, strict. So it is important that why teaching that subject, you tone it down, you do it in the most fun way possible. You use different methods such that you arrive at the same thing, but at the same time, you're making it fun for the children. Because if not, ooh, there's a lot of tension surrounding it, even for me.
Yep. Yep, it is so very true. It is so very true.
And we'd all agree that there is a lot of tension surrounding money.
Yeah, exactly. It is very true. Because you see, the tension surrounding money stem from this tension surrounding maths.
Yes.
So as a result of that, that tension just continue along the way. Which is so very sad.
It is. It is.
So very sad. Okay. Right. Last thing, what tips would you give to someone who is apprehensive and wanting to homeschool their children or their child? What tips would you give?
I remember, I know that something that people say a lot about me in the past and recently, especially when I'm relating with kids, not only with my own children, but other children, is, oh, you're very patient. I can't do this. And I keep saying, I've accepted it as a compliment. I'll say thank you. But before, I used to say a lot of, I'm not a patient person. But now I'll take the compliment and say thank you. But I think it stems from love, right? When you're homeschooling your kids, you're doing it out of love for them, out of the fact that you want the best for them. And it's not, like we said, there are so many challenges surrounding it. And it's not always going to be easy. Sometimes you're just tired. You just want to be laid back. You just don't want to do anything for that day. Or like, oh, we're doing this again. It's not easy to be the teacher every day. And then it takes you just 5 minutes to switch from the teacher role to the mommy role, and then you continue, right? Sometimes you need time off. But then the love keeps you going. Wanting the best for your kid keeps you going. Now, as much as we all love our kids, but at the same time, not everybody can do it. It's important to understand that not everybody will be able to do it. And it doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It doesn't mean you don't love your kid. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you're not a patient person. A lot of patient people cannot homeschool because some people just don't know how to pass it on. It's just like we too, we have, at some point in our life, we all have had that teacher or lecturer who is so good, is so knowledgeable in that field, but he just doesn't know how to pass it on. When he speaks, you know this person is good, he has it here, but he doesn't know how to impact it, right? So yeah, we're all different. It is important, like I said, to know your why. And what is your goal for homeschooling? Your why is going to take you to your goal for homeschooling. I want to raise global citizens that will be awesome individuals and be of good to themselves and to the whole of mankind, right? So that is my ultimate goal. Why am I doing it? I'm doing it for my kids and because I want the best for them, right? So in between this why and the goal is the journey. And it is important to understand that in that journey, as much as you're doing it for your kids, you're also on that journey with them. So you and your kids are the most important people in this journey. So do what is best for your kids and what works for you, what is good for you as well. There is a very high tendency to be burnt out while homeschooling because you're a mom. Now you want to take on the role of the teacher. You want to take on the role. You're the wife. You're the homemaker, the home manager. You also have to, if necessary, you have to make, have a source of living for yourself. As much as I want my husband to take care of me, I want him to be responsible for everything, me and the kids. I also want to be able to afford some things for myself, right? So there is that tension, there is that responsibility, there is that cap of so many responsibilities on you. While you're trying to like juggle everything, it is important to know that you take days off. So one thing I used to do while we were homeschooling is, unlike traditional school where the school goes on like a summer break or, the 2-month break, we didn't necessarily take breaks from homeschooling. So I think if I have to do it again, I would actually take breaks. I would take breaks where I would just be a mom and not necessarily have our typical homeschooling schedule, right? So it is important to also take breaks for yourself and for the kids. Like I said, the kids are enjoying it. It's just their regular life. It's just their everyday thing. But for you, it is important to take break from having to wake up or stay back at night and go on online to research on what you want to teach tomorrow, how to impact this, because you're also learning. You're teaching, but you have to learn to be able to teach. So you need to take break from doing that. I enjoy it. I like it so much, but I realized that at some point I'm just tired and I just can't place why I'm tired. It's because I never stop. So while homeschooling, you need to learn when to stop. Remember your why, have a goal in mind, know when to stop. Know that the people that are involved is not just your child, it is you and your child, right? So these things are very important. And so the things that you think you're going to traditional school for, like I said, the traditional school has a lot of advantage to it. So all those advantages that you feel like, oh, I may be losing out on the traditional school, and that is because if you don't make up for it, you have to make up for it. If you don't make up for it, then you'll be in between. Maybe we should just stop homeschooling. Maybe we should just, start school again. And the child does not need that. Your child needs to be consistent. Your child needs you. It's just like when kids change school often, it affects the child. So your child needs you to say you want to do this and you stick to it. So if you want to homeschool and you feel like this is what you miss in traditional school, try to incorporate it in your homeschooling. If it's a social aspect, if it is going on field trips and all that, try to incorporate it in your homeschooling. So these are things that are quite important that we should note. And have a village.
And have a
It takes a
village for the
village.
support.
Yeah,
For the
it takes a
support. Yeah,
village.
yeah. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Maura.
Anything else you want to add before we say goodbye to the audience?
I think those are the really, like, we could go on and on, right?
Exactly.
We could go
Yes.
on and on, but these are the basics. These are the things that, for me, in my own opinion, are important. Your child is important. Um, Flexibility.
Mhm.
Yes, that in homeschooling, like I said, it's easy to compare. It's easy to say, this is what the curriculum says, but you need to be flexible. You also need to be flexible to, some days we're just off.
Mhm. Mhm.
And just like we get off some days, the kids are just off as well. So some days they cannot, the child will not be able to learn that day when they're off.
Mhm.
Because if the brain is shut, there is nothing you're saying that goes in. So understand your child, realize the days that they are off, try to bring them out of that off period before you go into homeschooling, and be flexible. There are some times that you successfully bring them out of that mood, but do you want to go straight into that learning? Do you want to just use what you have prepared? How about we learn about emotional intelligence and managing our emotions today?
Mhm. Yeah.
You understand? So we don't necessarily have to go through, we want to do literacy, we've planned this out. Yesterday you said you wanted to learn this. And you know what? How about we just talk about managing our emotions today? These are skills that they need in life, right? And it's part of learning. So that is what the learning is going to be about today.
Mhm.
Okay, what are the things that we can do? How can we navigate our emotions? What are the things that could happen if we don't learn to manage our emotions? Then you can start talking about, and you know what? It's endless.
Mhm.
It to just keep going on, and you see that you're learning about so many things.
Yeah.
The things that could happen, the things that could go wrong if we don't learn to control this emotion. This emotion could trigger this, and ultimately it will affect this. Do you know that if we don't control emotions very well and this happens, it can lead to this ailment? You know,
Mhm.
different things. Oh, mom, how does it even affect it? How does this affect my kidney? Oh, if you put too much pressure on this one, your kidney is supposed to do this, it will affect this, and you don't, you're so mad that you don't you don't eat your normal diet that day, you don't take enough water, it could lead to this and it could affect this. And from there, you just open a very wide window of exploration. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it is important to be flexible, not to be too rigid as well in homeschooling.
Mhm. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you so much, Rodia. It's been fantastic. It's been wonderful because you're wearing two hats, one from back home and one from, being in Canada, and in Canada, homeschooling, so you could actually see, the
Yeah.
needs,
Mm-hmm.
of homeschooling and how powerful it was when you were doing it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So
Thank you
what
so
are the
much.
children view now, the fact that you're not homeschooling? What are they saying?
Oh, they really miss it.
Okay.
They miss the flexibility. They miss the fact that when they ask something, and that's what we are learning about, because um um children have a lot of questions.
Yes.
Children have a lot of questions, and this curiosity is what brings about learning.
Mm-hmm.
This curiosity helps them grow. When these curiosities are answered, it helps them grow. It helps them learn. And the things that they learn are definitely useful for them, because when they ask questions, it's usually about them. It's usually about things that are happening around them. And when something happens,
Mm-hmm.
there is probability that it will happen again. And then
Yeah.
they know how to like problem solve. They know how to like manage it next time it happens.
Yep.
So um if I'm a teacher in school and I have more than 5 kids asking me different questions pertaining to what they experience every day in the classroom, I am not going to meet the requirement that I'm supposed to meet for that day. So I might not necessarily have time to answer all those questions, and that child will be left hanging. And this is not me being bad or not tending to that child. This is just me trying to do my work while trying to, accommodate everybody. It's just normal, right? So the kids miss the fact that they can, be curious because they are always curious. And that is one thing they enjoy even while we are still supporting at home. They like the fact that at home they can come home and be curious and ask questions, and we'll solve it together. The ones I don't know, I'm like, okay, let's ask Google. Google is our best friend now. Let's
Exactly.
ask Google. So,
Yeah.
all these things, it's very interesting for them. So they miss that.
Yeah.
They miss that, homeschooling is more adventurous because that's what we were doing. We we went on more adventures. And I remember back home, the what's it called? The weather is different for back home. Here, back home is very tropical. Here it's cold. Right now it's winter and everywhere. We can even barely go out sometimes, right? Um, but back home we would go out every day. They'll see different things. And they'll say, Mommy, why is this here? Mommy, what's that green thing? Mommy, what's that? And then we'll go into the world of science and exploring all those things. These things we still do now, but it's very limited. So they miss that about homeschooling. They really want to go out. They have asked me several times they want to go back to homeschooling. And I keep telling them, you know what? We are still in our settling down stage. Let's settle down first and let's see how it goes.
Yeah. That's all you can say, though. That's the thing
Mm-hmm.
about it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you so very much. I really enjoy our discussion. And if
Thank you
you know
so much, Juan.
anybody who would like to come and join to share their journey with us, send them our way because there's so much more we have
Mm-hmm.
to talk about in terms of homeschool. And everybody's journey is very, very different.
Yes, it is.
You know,
Yeah.
everybody
Even
has a
my
life
journey with
experience.
my son is different from my journey with my daughter.
Exactly. Because they're two individuals
Yes,
do
yes,
things very differently,
yes.
and it should be acknowledged and
Right,
celebrated because they're different individuals.
right. So
Yeah.
I'm here. One time I was this was just last week. I was taking my daughter on, we were doing math, and my and because of where we are coming from and how long I've been teaching others, I didn't involve a brother in that lesson. But he was there and he was listening. And I asked my daughter, okay, so what do you think this is going to be? And my son just said it immediately.
Wow.
This is like grade 2 math. And he's interested and he got it, right? So I'm like, okay, come and join us if you're so interested and you know it already. But
Yeah.
it wouldn't, in a traditional school, that would not be allowed, regardless of the level that you are in. You're at this age, you be here.
Yep.
And that's, for me, in my opinion, that would be a disservice to my son if I'm saying, no, you can't join us because you're still this. No, he's ready, he's interested. Come join us. If you can tap from this, tap from it. And
Exactly.
if you're doing something else and you don't show so much interest, okay, that's okay. We'll
Mhm.
just fall back to where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. That's the beauty I keep on saying of homeschooling, according to the needs and the pace of the child.
Mm-hmm.
That is what's so important, and
Mm-hmm.
that is what being catered for.
Yeah.
You know. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Facebook audience, for tuning in. As you guys know, on a Friday is the home education, and on a Saturday is the female educators sharing the journey pre-COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. So there's three stages of that journey. So join us tomorrow where we'll be discussing female educators roundtable and what teachers are now going through. We have a different challenge right now. In the UK, it was the mobile phone. But in my class, I keep on saying to people, I don't have much issue with the mobile phone. But I know in some schools, it is a nightmare.
Mm.
So, the various things we'll be talking about on this female educators journey. So join us tomorrow where we'll discuss that. Thank you guys. Have a good evening, night, morning where you are. Take care, stay blessed. Don't forget to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, no one is loving you anyway. So you need to love come from you first and from within. It's not outside there. Bye bye, guys. Take care.